Hey everyone, a friend of mine missed out on $10 million by trying to sell his Bitcoin when it felt like it was high and then planning to buy it back when it was lower. So here's the quick story. So I've got a friend who was in Bitcoin from very early on, very early on. And ultimately he had somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 Bitcoin, but ultimately traded virtually all of them in for Dogecoin. And obviously Dogecoin did not perform well. He ultimately sold all of the Dogecoin for, I don't know, something like $100,000 or something like that. So obviously starting out with close to nothing and ending up with $100,000 is great, except had he held on to that Bitcoin, it would have been worth right now between $300 million and $400 million. So, but that's not the main point of this story. That's the main point of the story. Don't ever trade your Bitcoin for something else, and don't ever buy anything in crypto other than Bitcoin, because that cost, $300 million plus dollars in this case. But what this story is about is $10 million. The story of $10 million, because when he swapped his Bitcoin for Dogecoin, he kept 100 Bitcoin. And his thought was, I'm always going to have 100 Bitcoin. If Bitcoin ends up being worth a lot one day, I'll always have 100 Bitcoin. But he noticed that the price went up and down a lot, as it always does, because Bitcoin is a volatile asset early in its price cycles, early in its lifespan where we are right now. And back then, when the story took place, it was even earlier in Bitcoin's life cycle, and Bitcoin was $100 a coin. So he was looking at the price of Bitcoin, and it was $100 a coin, and Bitcoin had become worth a penny. That was a big deal when Bitcoin was worth a penny. And then it was a much bigger deal when Bitcoin was worth $1. And here it was up at $100 per coin. So his 100 Bitcoin at $100 per coin was worth $10,000. And he thought, well, I want to have more than 100 Bitcoin. I know what I'll do. I will sell them for $10,000. And then I will wait for the price to drop, and then I'll buy them back at a price less than $100 per Bitcoin, and then it'll be great. The challenge was, of course, $100 seemed high, because everything seems high when you're hitting it for the first time. So he thought, $100 a Bitcoin, how much higher can it really go? Like $100 a Bitcoin is really high. Anyway, and it seemed like it would go back down lower. So he sold it for he sold 97 of his 100 Bitcoin. So he only had 3 left. He sold 97 for $10,000, planning to buy them back. Well, life got busy and people get distracted and all that sort of stuff. And by the time, he was checking sort of judiciously to see if it was time to buy the Bitcoin back, the price, instead of going down, enabling him to buy more Bitcoin for cheap, the price had instead gone up to $300 per Bitcoin. So now this $10,000 of Bitcoin was now worth $30,000 of Bitcoin. Well, he didn't want to buy 100 Bitcoin back, or in this case 97. He did not want to buy the 97 Bitcoin back for $30,000 because he had just sold it, 6 or 8 months prior for $10,000. And of course, if you just sold something for $10,000, it seems ridiculously expensive to turn around and buy the same thing back for triple what you just sold it for. So he decided not to do that. He decided just to sit on his 3 Bitcoin and not buy the 97 Bitcoin back for $30,000, because again, he had just sold it, earlier, less than a year prior, for $10,000. So as a result of all that, when all the dust settled, he had the, I'm guessing $100,000, something, low 6 figures, whatever, from the Dogecoin, which again would have been worth $300 million had he kept it in Bitcoin. And then he would have had the $10 million had he not sold it with the intention of buying it back. So what could we learn from that? What we can learn is don't do that. So right now, $100,000 seems like a lot of money per Bitcoin. So there are a bunch of people who are looking at the price of Bitcoin and thinking at $100,000 exactly what my friend thought at $100, which is, wow, this seems high. It seems to go up and down a lot. How high can it really go? Maybe this is as high as it's going to go for the time being. Maybe I should sell my Bitcoin and buy it back at a lower price. And I can just about promise you, if you go down that road, you will have the same experience that my friend had. I don't know how much money you'll end up losing. Hopefully not $10 million, or in the case where he converted his Bitcoin to Dogecoin back in the very early days of Doge. He was one of the first people to own Dogecoin. But regardless, that first mistake cost him somewhere between $300 million and $400 million. And the second mistake of selling the Bitcoin and planning to buy it back at a lower price cost him an additional $10 million. So don't make that mistake. On its way up, every price Bitcoin hits seems high. I remember when $35,200, I remember when I looked at my watch and I saw $35,200 and thought, wow, that is high. Like, how high is it even going to go? Like, that's really high. I remember looking at my watch and seeing $62,000 and thinking, wow, that is really high. Like, how much higher is it going to go? Like, that's really high. I remember looking at my watch where I tracked the price of Bitcoin and seeing a price of $92,000 and thinking, wow, that's high. Like, Bitcoin's high. Right now, I look at my watch. It is $104,000. And I think, wow, that's pretty high. Like, that's high. If I sold my Bitcoin every time it felt high, I would have sold my Bitcoin back when it was $20,000 and not had any anymore. I'd be sitting around waiting to buy my Bitcoin back, and it would just leave me behind. At that point, I really would miss the boat. I really would be late to the party. But you're not late to the party, and you didn't miss the boat as long as you buy Bitcoin and hold on to it. The only way you can really miss the boat is by not buying Bitcoin at all, or buying it and then selling it. And then, look back in the future and you could have made 10 times your money or 100 times your money or whatever it ends up being. Maybe more than 100 times your money. Michael Saylor is predicting $13 million per Bitcoin, which is roughly 130 times your money. And he's predicting that in the next 20 years or so. So we don't know what the upside of Bitcoin is. All we know is that I believe it will outperform every other asset. And if it outperforms every other asset, then that means that's where you should keep money that you want to outperform every other asset. And on its way up, there will be numerous prices that feel high. And then you'll be tempted to sell your Bitcoin. And don't do it. Don't sell your Bitcoin. Everybody who does that ends up regretting it. And people plan to buy their Bitcoin when it's low, but when the price goes down, everybody gets scared, because when the price is down, there's reasons it's down, and everybody's freaking out, and it's going down, and they don't have the courage they thought they were going to have when it was going up to actually buy it when it's down. So even people who think they're going to buy Bitcoin when it's down tend to not do that, because by the time it is down, they freak out, and they're freaking out for the same reason the whole market's freaking out, which is why the price of Bitcoin is down. So very few people have the courage and conviction to actually buy it when it's down. And a lot of people screw up and sell it when it feels like it's up. So hopefully that won't cost you $10 million like it cost my friend. And it's cost many other people lots of other money. So another friend of mine, we had dinner a while back, or lunch, I guess it was lunch. And they were telling me that they had bought a bunch of I don't know if it was a bunch. They had bought Bitcoin, some meaningful amount of Bitcoin, at a price of $5,000. And they had, bought it because other people at their CrossFit gym were buying Bitcoin, et cetera, and they bought it at $5,000. I was like, oh, well, what happened next? They were like, well, it went up to 20 and I sold it. I was like, well, why'd you sell it? And they were like, well, because 20 is 4 times as much as 5. So it seemed to be way up. So why wouldn't you buy it at 5 and then you sell it at 20? And the answer is because one day it's worth 105, and one day it's worth 200, and one day it's worth 500, and one day it's worth, $1 million a coin. That's why you don't sell it at 20,000. So they made 4 times their money. They could have made, 4 times 5. They could have made 20 times their money between $5,000 and $105,000. They could have made 21 times their money. 21 times your money. Now, how often in your lifetime do you get a chance to make 21 times your money in relatively few short years? The answer is rarely. That opportunity rarely comes along. So they locked in a win at 4x, which is insane, because they didn't really lock in a win at 4x. They locked themselves out of an additional 500% return. A 4x could have been 21x, but it wasn't, because they sold their Bitcoin. So don't sell your Bitcoin. Don't sell it unless you're, using Bitcoin to make your life better. And that's the point of money. And that, at that point, it is what it is. But anyway, don't sell your Bitcoin. You'll regret it. It will probably, the Bitcoin you sell will be unaffordable to buy back later. Like you literally will not be able to afford to buy back to get as much as you have if you had before you sold Bitcoin. So, and certainly don't sell it with the plan of buying it back later at a cheaper price, because you're probably going to get, left in the dust. And plus, what does a cheaper price even mean? Does that mean it drops from 104 to 98 or 94, 92? Are you going to only buy Bitcoin if it goes back to 85? What if it goes back to 75? What if we're in a massive worldwide recession and it goes to 75? Are you going to freak out and say, well, I can't buy it now because the whole world's on fire? Like, there's no way of knowing what high is. There's no way of knowing what low is. And if you let yourself be tricked into believing that you can time the market or time the price, I promise you're going to just cheat yourself out of Bitcoin. Don't do that. You can't do that at stocks. You can't do that with bonds. You can't do that with commodities. They all work the same way, where every price that's high feels high. Every price that's low feels low. And then you only realize in retrospect that the lows were not low at all and the highs were not high at all. And you totally got it backwards and you got left in the dust and you cheated yourself out of financial freedom. So don't do that. Just buy the same advice I always give and that I've given for years. Buy as much Bitcoin as you possibly can and hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. And the only reason you should part with your Bitcoin, like I do when I buy stuff with my Coinbase debit card, is to improve the life of me and my family. But even then, every 2 weeks when a paycheck shows up, I buy more Bitcoin. So over time, I am accumulating Bitcoin, even though I'm also spending it. But if you are in the mode that if you're not spending it for living expenses, but only for things that make your life better in a significant way, well, that's fine. That's the point of money. Just realize whatever amount you're spending, it's going to be really hard to get your hands on that much Bitcoin in the future, because in the future, it's going to be worth a lot more than it is now. So don't sell your Bitcoin. Do not sell your Bitcoin and plan on buying it back at a cheaper price. Buy as much Bitcoin as you can. Hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. That is the formula. That has always been the formula. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks.